many are coming against Israel and the Jewish people. They might label it under anti-Zionism or whatever they want to call it, but many are coming against God's people, the Jewish people. And so it's a constant, I don't know if fight is the right word. It's a constant effort, I think, on the part of our ministry to help people understand. And I have to recognize, because it can be overwhelming, just like in anything you're doing that is of good efforts and of, I believe, divine origin, is that you can get overwhelmed with the great need and the opportunity to try to convince a lot of people. And the reality is I can't convince people of anything. Yeah. It's really got to be a work of the Holy Spirit. And so we take the opportunities as they present themselves. I think from my perspective, I try my best to befriend people and be their resource in their mission. And what I would say is really my mission, to help them understand God's purposes for the Jewish people and how the church is being called and being asked by God to not only stand with the Jewish people, but to bless them. And what does that look like?
Shalom, friends. Welcome to
The Jewish Road.
The Jewish Road podcast.
Jewish Road podcast.
Yeah. What's your name?
I am Ron Davis with the Jewish Road podcast. My grandkids call me Papa.
That's right. And my name's Matt Davis, and I don't have grandkids, and it's pretty good. Yeah. And we're here with a special guest, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. We, what? You're looking at me like this.
This is a special guy. When you hear what he is into and what's going on and how he is working with the Jewish people, it is going to be amazing.
This podcast is almost like over before it's even started. I feel like it's already off the rails. If you could hear the last 10 minutes of this, there's a good reason we edit these things. So, hey, we are here with Josh Roberts. Hello, Josh. It's good to have you here.
Great to be here, Matt and Ron. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Please help us out. We're going to need a lot of help on this one. But you have a ministry called Qashar Ministries. We're going to get into all of that. But we have some backstory that we got to share. Yeah.
Whose? Ours or his?
No, they don't care about us anymore. That was like the first 20 podcasts. Now they're moving on. Like, what else do you guys got? Here's some fun stuff. What?
What do you guys have?
Oh, are you correcting my grammar? Perfect. Thank you. I love that. Josh, this is great. We are friends. You're not just a guest, but we're friends. And
True.
We have a lot in common. What we have in common, we are both from Southern California.
Yes.
You were a little further north up there in Los Angeles, and I was a little further south in Orange County. You were a pastor. I was a pastor. Yeah. And you are a Jewish follower of the Jewish Messiah, Jesus. And we, as if that was not enough, then we now have both left Los Angeles area, Southern California, and we've made the trek out here to the promised land of Lexington, Kentucky. So you live just a few minutes away from me.
Very true.
Not only that, do you see how I'm stacking this on? There's so much going on here.
It's incredible.
He has a messianic Jewish ministry that is not only educating and reaching people here in the States, but also benefiting the people of Israel. Not only that,
I
know, it gets better. He is doing this ministry with his dad. Now, how many messianic father-son Jewish ministries are there in Kentucky or even in the world? I think that this is
in Kentucky.
In Kentucky, definitely we are the only ones in Kentucky, but this might be a worldwide phenomenon.
Between Josh and us, we doubled the Jewish population here.
That's right.
we almost have a minion, don't we?
Yeah. Okay, so that's I just need to get all of that out, and I say I only have a couple friends here, and Josh, I consider you one of them, and so it's good to have another one out here, and it's really good to have you here. This has been a long time coming. And so I want to share, and I want people to know about what your ministry is and does. But give us a little bit of the backstory. I know your dad's not here with us right now, but a little bit of backstory of the formation of how did Qashar Ministries come together, and what is a Qashar?
That's a great question, Matt. And thanks again for having me to come out and be a guest. And I do consider you, and I guess Ron, a friend as well.
Guesses, yeah. We'll see by the end of this. We're all unsure about you a little bit, so it's okay.
So no, it's really an honor to be with you here. So Qashar is a ministry my father started and is still very much involved in. I am becoming more and more involved, I think, as the days go by. Started, I think, about 8 years ago now, if my dates are correct. And it really is rooted out of this desire my father really blames the Lord for, in that he had a growing desire to find out what were Jewish believers in Israel doing to reach their neighbors in their community. He had been involved for 19 years in ministry here in the States, attempting to reach Jewish people. And before that, he also pastored congregations in the Christian church. And so he's kind of lived in both of those worlds as well. And through just that curiosity and that seed that was planted by the Spirit, Dad took a couple trips to Israel to explore and to meet Jewish believers in Jesus that live in the Promised Land. And through that, and seeing the needs and seeing what people were actually doing on the ground, Qashar Ministries was born. And we really position ourselves and see ourselves as partners in really what's going on in Israel. We do have connections and we do have partnerships here in the United States, but our real work, and really it's the work of those that are in the land 24/7 living in Israel, is to come alongside them and empower and equip them to reach their communities with God's love and God's hope in, obviously, our Messiah. So that's kind of a snapshot of what we do and kind of a snapshot of the beginnings. And what is a Qashar? It's a great question. And the word comes from the story of Jonathan and David in 1 Samuel 18, where the scriptures tell us they were knit together by the Lord. And that is the word Qashar. And we really see ourselves as knitting ourselves with people stateside and knitting ourselves with people in Israel to really advance his name and his kingdom in Israel until the Lord returns.
I love it.
That's great. And when you give that snapshot and you talk about the knitting together, we just naturally have that heart to do that. But how much are you able to get that message across to Christians in the church?
Well, you guys probably know this just as well as any, and many of your audience may know as well, but it's a challenge, especially in today's environment where many are coming against Israel and the Jewish people. They might label it under anti-Zionism or whatever they want to call it, but many are coming against God's people, the Jewish people. And so it's a constant, I don't know if fight is the right word. It's a constant effort, I think, on the part of our ministry to help people understand. And I have to recognize, because it can be overwhelming, just like anything you're doing that is of good efforts and of, I believe, divine origin, is that you can get overwhelmed with the great need and the opportunity to try to convince a lot of people. And the reality is I can't convince people of anything. Yeah. It's really got to be a work of the Holy Spirit. And so we take the opportunities as they present themselves. I think from my perspective, I try my best to befriend people and be their resource in their mission. And what I would say is really my mission, to help them understand God's purposes for the Jewish people and how the church is being called and being asked by God to not only stand with the Jewish people, but to bless them. And what does that look like? Because I think we sometimes wrap our minds around these ideas of blessing and what does it really mean? And what does it mean really for me is kind of how we always understand blessing, instead of understanding that God gives us in order for us to be a blessing unto other people. It comes first, obviously, with salvation and forgiveness and redemption and all the things that we experience through that. But even more so, what does that mean now? How do I live?
Yeah. So, let's start here, because there is it's not the word battle. I understand, because we don't want to go to war with our own people, but there's a struggle. And how do you overcome that? And you've been on both sides of it. You've been in the church and you have, you've been around Christians and you understand how the church works. How do you overcome that? And what's the message? And where's the confusion coming in for the church? What are they not hearing, or what are they not getting? And how do you step into that graciously, lovingly? And the words that I always try to use is, we want this to be more of an invitation and not a condemnation. Yes. I don't want to say you're doing it wrong or you're messing it up. I want to say, let me show you what this looks like and how we can bring you in.
I really appreciate the way that you framed that, because that's something that more recently on my own I've come to terms with. Previously, and not in a bad way, I may have unintentionally communicated to people that you're wrong and I'm right. I think that is a kind of a natural human tendency, and I have fallen victim to that. But in the last, let's say, at least 7 months, I have really come to understand the role that I am playing, at least when it comes to partnering with a church, is that I'm offering an invitation to blessing, an invitation to obedience, an invitation to possibly re-examine the way that you've understood something, or maybe we've all misunderstood something. And so I really am trying to play that role. I'll give an example from real life. I have a friend of mine who leads a congregation in Texas, grew up in a denomination that, for the most part, is very pro-Israel, has been for many, many, many years. Yet throughout his entire experience in the church, being raised in the church, going to a denominational Bible college or university, pastoring now for many years on staff, and planting a church that is now becoming quite successful in the Austin area. He had a very, I would call it an indifference towards Israel and the Jewish people. He wasn't against the Jewish people, wasn't against Israel per se. He just was very indifferent. It never really entered into his thinking, into his teaching, into his envisioning for what he might need to lead his people into. And that began to change. And he's known the type of ministry and work that we do now for a while. But just earlier this year, he took his first ever trip to Israel. And by God's grace, he was led by a young man that is very knowledgeable, not just in the archaeology and the history and the theology, but in the culture also of the land. And this young man was able to help him see, and it wasn't just him, he was in a group of other pastors, but help him to see the importance of Israel and the Jewish people, that they are still a part of God's plan for today. And he came back. And because I've been his friend for many years, but even more so in the last 3 or 4 years, we've really reconnected. And he knows what I do, and he knows that I'm ethnically Jewish, and he then knew who to call when he came back with all of his questions. And so we've been having this dialogue, and I've been putting resources in his hands. And that's really how I view my part, is like, I can't convince the whole world. There are people that I, by God's grace, might have influence with. And with those friends and with those people, I want to be a friend and a resource to them, to encourage them, because especially people of influence, like a congregational leader, like a pastor, if I'm able to help them see things from a different perspective, perhaps a little bit more in alignment with what God might be doing, then I feel like that influence is going to be greater. As a pastor speaks, he has the opportunity, or she has the opportunity, every Sunday to share with their congregation what God is doing in their heart. And even just recently, I've seen even on his Facebook post how he's looking at one of the books that I gave him as one of the most influential books he's read in the last 6, or even really in his last ministry life. 20-something years. And that was a book that you and I have talked about, The Jewish Jesus. And just that simple, clear book was able to help him, in addition to, following up from his trip from Israel.
We talk about this quite a bit, but, we weren't taught in seminary, the Jewish roots of our faith. You have an Old Testament class, but it's a survey, or you might get Daniel with Revelation. But I think for the most part, pastors don't get this kind of education. And I think there's also a reticence, and I get it, to bring in people like us to be able to tell this story, because it might showcase the ignorance that they have. And I've always said, and whenever we go into a church, we say, this church is amazing because they're taking this step to be able to open themselves up to learning something. And what we found is those pastors navigating the Israel thing, navigating the Middle East thing is a minefield, especially if you don't know, the history of modern Israel. And the Palestinians and all of this stuff, it is a minefield. It's a minefield even for us sometimes, right? Like, how do you navigate? And sometimes you feel like, why am I having to defend the IDF or all of these different things, right? So you navigate that. But what we find is that if you can actually get over that, and when we share with you, with your congregation, with your church, those are the pastors that start to text us. And then they start to ask this question. I'm looking at this passage and I want to know, do you have any Jewish insight? Is there, what's the roots? What am I missing in this? And we love that. Like, that's what we get to spend our time. If we can resource and help the church, or, hey, I just saw this article. What do you think about it? Now we can actually, what we want to do is build bridges, right? We're not supposed to be separated. If we really are truly supposed to be one new man in the Messiah, then that's how it has to start. And we're here, you're here to be able to say, let's do this together, right?
Yeah. Well, and you got to realize that for centuries, we were in a big blank spot with Israel out of the land. And, not only that, but the church going off in a completely different direction. And now all of a sudden, with Israel back in the land and we're seeing prophecy being fulfilled, it just recently, even since I've been a believer, there's been more openness to what we're doing, to what Josh is doing. And, you're out there, I think, kind of saying, this is how you provoke them to jealousy.
Yeah. I mean, that's really our heart. Unlike the Jewish Road, I feel like you guys are definitely well positioned intentionally to be teachers and instructors and guides on this journey to understanding the Jewish people, the Jewish roots, and the importance of reaching out to the Jewish people with love, compassion, and understanding. Our role is part that, but it isn't our primary focus. But in order for us to do our primary focus, which is to bring help to the Jewish people in Israel, we need partners. We're not going to do it alone. We're not going to do it as you guys well know, the Jewish community isn't so keen on partnering up with people that are Jewish followers of Jesus. And then you have a bunch of people in our community now, in our culture now, that just are not very excited about Jewishness in general and anything touching Israel. And so we're this is dangerous in a lot of ways, dangerous, I say that in quotes, but prior to October 7th, but since October 7th, as we all know, things have just magnified and intensified. And so as our country becomes more polarized and now other situations take place where people are choosing sides, it becomes dangerous. And so it's going to take people in leadership positions, pastors, that are going to be bold and courageous. And it begins with humility, right? And recognizing there are certain things that I just have not been prepared for. Maybe I ought to reach out to somebody that has at least a little bit more experience and understanding in these areas. And so I can learn with and from them, so that, because I think that's really the key too. Even if we see or positions ourselves as teachers or instructors or guides, however we want to frame it, we have to recognize that we're also in a learning position as well. It's not just us coming as a talking head expert, but we have to position ourselves as a co-learner. There are things that we're bringing to the table, and they're also bringing some things to the table, these pastors and leaders of influence. And so we need to learn to work together in humility. And then, and that's why I really love the image of knitting together, is because that's really where we're able to advance God's kingdom. They're going to know, right, that we're his disciples because of love that we have for one another. Yeah. Yes, we're called to love the stranger. We're called to love all the outsiders, our enemies and our enemies, absolutely. But if it doesn't start with those that are part of the family of God, then we've got some big problems.
Yeah. So how do you do it, right? So I would say that the Jewish Road, we are primarily teachers, right? And there is a part of what we're doing as a ministry where we get to bring and resource and deliver humanitarian aid, but you really are pushing that forward. So I want people to hear about what does that look like? Who are you serving and how are you doing it?
So I'll tell the story really through just kind of a little bit of our history. As my dad began to explore Israel with another Messianic believer who had no connection really at that point to ministry. He had previously also served in the church as a pastor, but was actually in politics, believe it or not, of all things at that point. And when you're going on a mission to truly discover and learn, it takes time to discern not only what are other people doing in the land of Israel, right? Like what ways are people serving their communities and trying to share the love and the message of our Savior? But you also have to discern what's my role in that as well. And so Dad began to explore and meet people that were serving their communities, and through that discern the need, because his goal was, how can I serve these ministries, and how can I serve these nonprofits and organizations? And through that, he found some people here in the States, Gentiles, that were all bought in to blessing Israel and the Jewish people. And so he began to learn for what they were doing, some of the things that have led to what we do today. And that began with ministries that were bringing in, believe it or not, dried soup mix into Israel to help some of the poor. Knitted blankets and quilts that were brought in, made by people across the United States from churches in knitting groups and in quilting groups that were sending them on to some of the elderly in Israel. And so through that process, he began to learn that there is a great opportunity, not just in Israel there, but there is a way to get goods from the United States into Israel. And so we began, and this is before I really got involved on a deep level, but we began to put things together and ship them from the United States, primarily from California, where Dad still lives, and get them off to Israel. And so through that process, as you begin to bring things to Israel and to bless people, and you begin to go back to Israel to be a part of the distribution of that, you begin to see some of the other needs that are there. And through that began one of our first big projects, which was bringing backpacks for school-age children that were in need. And your congregation out there might have done something like that in the past, blessing kids before the school year. And so this is exactly what we did. And so the first year, Dad found a wholesaler in Texas that was willing to sell backpacks at a discounted price to him as a nonprofit, and he raised the money. And the ministry took 5,000 backpacks in a container into Israel. And they were very quickly distributed and got into the hands of families in need. And probably 3 to 4 months later, many of the ministries that we partnered with at that time began to reach out and say, hey, do you feel like you can do backpacks again? And Dad was like, well, sure, I can explore that. How many backpacks are we talking this time? And so they put a poll out to all the ministries that had been recipients. And the numbers quickly began to climb. And they were around 8,500. And at this point, I started volunteering with the ministry. And I said, well, Dad, I said, if the numbers are at 8,500, we can very easily hit 10,000 as far as meeting the need in Israel. And so we began to explore what would it look like for us to take 10,000 backpacks into Israel. And we also began to explore at that point, well, this guy that we bought it from, this wholesaler in Texas, got him from China. What would it look like for us to cut out the middleman and go directly to China? Can we buy backpacks from China? And thus began kind of this new way for us to do ministry, as we began to purchase and or manufacture goods, in this case in China. Will it always be that way? We don't know. The world will change. And I would hope that our ministry will remain flexible and adaptable to the needs. But right now, it's way cheaper for us to do some of the things that we're doing and bringing them directly into Israel from China than it is to buy something here in the States. It can become cost effective to do it from the States, but shipping is more expensive. And there's a lot of other factors that we've learned along the way. But that began the journey to us moving towards backpacks. And by God's grace, in the summer of 2023, 2 years ago, we were able to bring 10,000 backpacks into Israel. They got hung up in Greece for a couple of weeks, but by God's grace, they got to a bunch of kids right before the school semester.
So the people and the ministries on the ground that you guys are hitting are not these. There's some really big ministries out there, but what I love about what you guys are doing is you're going after the little ones. How are you guys finding them? Those relationships, they're not like you're looking them up online. Like, these are deep, and you've met them and you guys have talked with them. What's the mission there, and maybe even just the perspective and outlook?
Yeah, I think this goes again back to our name of knitting ourselves together. And I think for many people, this will resonate, is that when you're in a partnership, and that's really how we view our ministry partners in Israel, there's really a partnership that's going on there. And when you're in a partnership with somebody, you want to be able to trust them, and they should be able to trust you as well. And so that takes some time. It takes relationship. And a lot of the relationships that we have right now with some of our ministry partners was rooted in some of those early trips that my father made to Israel. First, he was introduced to the few Messianic believers that his buddy knew that was coming from California as well. But when you meet one, and you know this because you guys have been to Israel many times, is when you meet a Messianic Jew in Israel, everybody may not know that person, but they know of that person. Mm-hmm. It's a small network of believers. And so, especially if they're doing something good for their community. And so through those relationships, we were introduced to other people that were doing good works. And many of the partners that we first connected with were not the bigger organizations, although we've had meetings and at times we've done things with some of the bigger organizations. And this is not like we're an anti-big organization kind of group, but oftentimes those that are doing great and faithful work in some of the smaller communities of Israel are just overlooked because they're working full-time jobs and they're serving their communities. They're either leading a congregation or they have a nonprofit and they're serving their community well, but nobody knows about them except for the people in their neighborhood. And in our heart and in our mind, that's really who we want to empower most. We want to create as much opportunity for them to bless their communities because everybody knows they're doing it in the name of Yeshua. They may not like what they believe, but they are certainly willing to take help when they need it. Most people, anyway.
And that's an interesting piece with all this is you guys are not taking the backpacks, throwing the big Qashar logo on it and saying, here we are, we're Qashar. You guys are really a silent, invisible partner in all of this.
Yeah, this really, I think, starts back to the way that my dad envisioned what he felt God was telling him to do, to really be the one that empowers the local ministries to do this. And it resonates well with my heart too, because we're not trying to start a big organization that's going to have commercials on your favorite cable news station. Mm-hmm. Our heart is to make these ministries in their communities the celebrities and the stars. So when we did backpacks, I wish I had one right here. I have it in the other room, but they're just plain blue, Israel blue, no labels, no logos, nothing on it, not even the Israeli flag, just a plain blue backpack to give to these kids. Good quality. No brand. So that way, whether the ministries in the north, by the Galilee, in Jerusalem, wherever, they can hand it out and put their name on it if they want to. One of the ministries I know put tags on the hooks and great, because that's what we want. We want people to know that it's coming from that local ministry so that when they're in need again, or maybe they're really stressed out because of things that are going on, rocket attacks and sirens and all that kind of stuff, these people offer prayer. I'll go with these people because at least they were good to me.
Yeah, you know what strikes me from what you're saying and what you guys are doing, is the thought that prior to Israel being back in the land in 1948, there was such hardly any of the remnant of Jewish people as believers. I mean, there always have been down through the years, but from 1948 on, all of a sudden, you have more and more Jews becoming believers. And what you're doing seems like this is a necessary partnership where you're building relationships with the Christians out there who are showing compassion and being led to do that kind of thing through, the way that you're leading them. It almost makes it a necessary component of both the Jews and the Christians as believers to work together in that way.
Yeah, and so let me clarify too for all of your audience as well is that a vast majority. I can't give you the actual number, but let's say we have 35 partners. I would say 30 of them though are led by Messianic believers. And that's been intentional on our part. We have felt called to empower the Messianic movement in Israel. Now, will we work with Christians? Yes, absolutely. And on our last project, one of our key partners is a Christian organization. Do we get upset or do we try to avoid blessing any of the Palestinians? No, not at all. But we also recognize that what God is asking of us in our ministry, not anybody else, but what he's asking of us is that we're called to empower the Messianic movement or the Messianic congregations, however, because not all of them are congregations, but we're called to empower the Messianic believers in the land of Israel to minister and to serve to their community. That's our primary calling. If Palestinians get become followers of Jesus along the way, praise God. If some Palestinians get blessed by some of our stuff, praise God. It's not like we're anti-Palestinian, but our calling, what our mission is to empower the Messianic believers to reach out to their Jewish brothers and sisters in their community in the love and the name of Jesus, our Messiah.
So we have backpacks, but we've been friends since your latest project and the latest delivery, and been following this journey with you for the last couple of years. We just got back from Israel. You were going to go to Israel, and then everything. I remember, we were both watching what was happening with Iran, and I started to think. I said, because all of that I think happened like a day or two before you were scheduled to go, and I looked and I just said, I don't think you're going to Israel. But give us a little bit of the sense of that trip, what you were going for, and what happened, unfortunately, without you.
Yeah, so I kind of want to backtrack and say another parallel in our lives. When Matt and I first met, introduced by some college friends of mine, shout out to our High Slip clan out there in the Arizona desert. I think we met shortly after October 7th. Yeah. And you guys were scheduled to be in Israel, I think, leaving for Israel on the 8th of October.
Sure.
So some of the pains that come when your heart is in Israel and your body is stuck in Lexington, Kentucky. Yeah. And so we were scheduled to leave the Saturday after Israel made that preemptive strike on Iran. And we were scheduled to be in Israel for about a month. And that was heartbreaking in many ways, because this was to be our first trip since October 7th. So in many ways, it was very disheartening. But in the midst of all that, I was reminded in the following days, maybe not in the moment, but in the following days, that when you're doing something for God, He really doesn't need you. He likes to use us, and He wants to have people that are willing to be used, but He doesn't really need us to do a thing. But He gets to choose to use us. And the project that Matt is alluding to has really become, it's really come by with just a lot of effort and a lot of just faithfulness of God. And that was bringing baby diapers to Israel. On our previous trip in 2023, one of the things we do in addition to helping our partners and empowering them is when we're there, we try to encourage them and meet with as many of them as we can. And we also try to ask them, what are your needs? What are the new needs, or what are the trends you're seeing in the people you're serving? And this is important to us because what we do isn't just solely determined by, hey, I can get backpacks at a great price. Right. It's determined by what are the people telling us are the needs on the ground, and can we meet that? Is God in this? And so on that trip in 2023, we had asked previously one of our key partners, hey, can you poll some of our network and just ask them, hey, what are the needs they're seeing on the ground? And so we had a list that was really long. When we were sitting down for dinner and having some good food, as you know, you can get in Jerusalem, and he pulls out this big old long piece of paper. But then what he did is he circled and he said, number 1, 2, or 3 on everybody's list is baby diapers. And we're like, wow. We had heard that baby diapers were in need, but this was just the evidence. And that was before we had a couple strategic meetings with ministries and now partners that baby diapers are one of the main things that they do. So we came back from that trip and we began to just explore. And this is where you find the confirmation of the Lord in what you're doing. If the doors begin to seem open and it seems viable, you step forward in faith and you see where God will meet you there. And so we had a dream when we left Israel in 2023 that we wanted to come back with about 250,000 baby diapers. We figured that was reasonable, a bigger project by any measure than we had ever done. The biggest concern then, and even leading up to this trip when it was executed, was execution and the distribution of baby diapers. We don't have property. We don't have a warehouse in Israel. We have a network of ministries that we utilize, but we don't have space. And so we began to explore all those things. And as we began the journey to see, are baby diapers viable, and can we get them from China at a great price? We began to realize that we couldn't make an order of 250,000 baby diapers. It was just too small. Most of the manufacturers that we were talking to required 100,000 of each size that you were going to buy. And we already knew just by talking to people that we needed about 5 sizes. We could have gone for 6, but we realized that that 6th size, which was the smallest newborn, was going to just be essentially a waste. For those of you that have had babies out there, you know, babies don't last very long in a newborn diaper if they even fit in them when they're born. And so we went from that small size up to XX, and we knew that, well, we're looking at least 500,000 baby diapers. And so all of a sudden, our ideas and our dreams of 250,000, which seemed somewhat overwhelming at the time, literally became overwhelming when we had to know the order had to be 500,000. And then as we got closer to pushing the go button on the manufacturing of the diapers, we had negotiated great prices and everything. We realized that 500,000 diapers, it's too many to fit in one 40-foot container, but it doesn't quite fill up 2 40-foot containers. And so we made the decision, let's fill 2 40-foot containers, because you're paying for shipping, whether that has one baby diaper in it or it's packed to the gill. Right. And so we ended up, by God's grace, bringing 649,000 baby diapers to Israel. And they had cleared customs earlier here. July 3rd is the date. I know it. I don't know if I'll ever forget it. But they cleared customs that day and immediately began to get distributed to our partners in Israel.
Wow. So, man, there's a few things. How do you get word? Where did they come in? Are they going in through Haifa? And then how do you, really, you're running a ministry, but it's a distribution logistics company, essentially, is what you're doing. You have a lot of partners, but does everybody show up at the port and grab their diapers and run out? Like how, and why diapers? Like is there so many babies in Israel that this is a thing? Like, how do you do that? I have more questions, but I'm going to stop there.
Okay. I'll answer. And then if we have time, I'll answer the next set. Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is that I learned a lot about baby diapers in this project. When the project began, I still had one of my daughters that was wearing diapers. So I had recent and firsthand experience with baby diapers. So when you buy diapers as a parent, you know what a good diaper is, and maybe a diaper that's worth just one quick disposal, you know? Yeah. So I began to learn, like, what are the things that designate a diaper truly to be high quality. And then I also began to discover that the need for baby diapers was significant in Israel, but it's also truly a global need. Here in the United States, 49% of families struggle to put baby diapers on their babies. Wow. 49%.
That's half of the families.
Half of the population. And in almost every country that you go to, developed countries, Israel included, the numbers hover between 45 and 50% of families struggle to put diapers on their babies' behinds. And a lot of that has to do with the reality, as we've all experienced, especially post-COVID, is inflation has gone up due to supply chains or whatever conspiracy theory you want to believe in or not believe in. But prices are up. There's no denying that. And you can't avoid buying baby diapers. You might be able to hold off on certain things. You might be late on your utility bill. You might buy less at the grocery store, but when your baby needs a change, you need a fresh diaper to put on your baby. And that's a hard choice to make as either a new mom or dad or just a family that maybe has a new baby. And so that was one of the things that we certainly discovered, not only about, of course, the U.S., but really in Israel, which is the population that we serve. And so with so many and you guys know, cost of living in Israel is not cheap. Right. It's expensive. The numbers vary, but anywhere from as low as 23 to 25% of the population sit at or below the poverty line. Costs are going up, and baby diapers aren't cheap. And a lot of even the ministries that we were serving that provide baby diapers to people, if they bought, most of them are buying kind of a cheaper diaper. And this is not a slam on them. It's just like they're trying to help as many families as they can. And so sometimes that means you're not buying your high-end diaper, even your high-quality diaper. You're buying maybe a drugstore diaper. And so that means more changes. So yeah, it costs less, but it just means more changes for your baby. And so that was part of our goal too, is like, hey, we need to bring a quality diaper, not just any diaper, but let's make sure that what we're bringing is comparable to some of the mainstream brands. And so that's how we began to discover it wasn't just our ministry partners issue. It was Israel as a country issue for families. And so then logistics, that was like our big struggle. It's like, how are we going to do this? So on our trip in 2023, when we were envisioning, maybe it's diapers, right? We began to say, cause you don't always know what's going on in one country versus another if you don't live there. And so like, is there a place, like a storage place that I could go and rent storage space? And so we explored, there's a chain of Israeli, the U.S. companies like Public Storage, right? Yeah, like there's an Israeli version of that in Israel. And so we looked, what would it look like? And how many of those rooms do we need to hold a container or two of diapers? Again, we didn't know how many diapers we would have at that point. And what would it cost us? And so we began to estimate, all right, do we need to fold 3 to 4 months worth of a storage unit into our budget for this particular project? One of the key partners that I mentioned earlier that is a Christian organization is one that we found and then I built a relationship with, all virtually, just so happens to have a warehouse in Jerusalem. And some of our partners and some of our key partners in this diaper project are based in the Jerusalem area. And you guys know that space in Jerusalem is a commodity, especially empty warehouse space. And this ministry has been there about 40 years and they've served the community. And by God's grace, we were able to build a partnership virtually just through phone conversations, through WhatsApp and emails, and built some trust to where they became our Jerusalem base for a lot of our Jerusalem adjacent ministries. And so they are right now storing diapers in their warehouse free of charge. They are helping not only that, but they're distributing some for our partners to their other locations. We also have blessed them because they have an arm of their ministry, which is primarily there to bless people in the community as well. So we, of course, we wanted to partner with them anyway and because they're right there in the city. And so they have a big segment of diapers for their ministry as well. And that was really one of the 40-foot containers. The other one, so that one left the port, cleared customs and got on a truck and went straight to Jerusalem to be offloaded at their warehouse. Other ministry partners will go there and pick up. Others will get disbursements. The other container stayed there in Haifa. It arrived in Haifa. There's a drop spot that one of our partners uses. So one of our partners is a key strategic partner, and they also own or operate an importing business. So what we technically do is our ministry gifts the entire shipment to her Israeli nonprofit, which is called an Amutah. And so her Amutah receives it, and then she helps us logistically with the rest. So we have a drop spot in Haifa where a bunch of ministries from central and northern Israel will come and do a pickup there. And then that truck moves down to Ashdod. And then other ministries from the south will come in, pick up, and take back to their locations. And so that is logistically how you move 650,000 baby diapers within about 2 days.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing because here's the thing. We were to be there to oversee this part, right? Like 10,000 diapers, 10,000 backpacks is a lot of backpacks, but that fits in a 20-foot short container. A lot of backpacks, don't get me wrong. And they were boxed. And so people came, we did all the drop off, the same thing last time, Haifa and down in the south. It worked great. And then we had one ministry that took some to a whole bunch of other ministries. But 10,000 pieces to 650,000 pieces, this was our biggest concern. Not even really raising the money. Raising money is a challenge, but when you finally are doing something at this skill level, you better make sure, this height level, you better make sure you get it done and do it well. Yeah. And man, this is really where I praise our team. It's really not our team. It's this network of people. And just, if it went off without a hitch, without us having to be there to make any decisions, we had continual communication with our partners, but everything has continued to be just without a flaw, without a mistake. It's really, this is where I go and I look back and I say, yeah, God doesn't need me. I'm grateful that he chooses to use me and invite me into this partnership, but he doesn't need me.
Yeah, everything that happens for his glory is his doing. Yeah. And he just uses us.
Yep. So these are not plain diapers, like the plain blue backpacks. These have a little something on there, but it is not Qashar Ministries.
No.
I think this is the fun part. Tell us a little bit about the branding.
So, gosh, there's so many stories here. So when we were in the process of negotiating with our supplier manufacturer, one of the options that they give you is, do you want to brand these products? Because most of their, by and large, most of their customers or clients are people that are going to sell these diapers that they're making, and they're going to sell them around the world or wherever they're taking them back to. And, we are not selling, we're giving. And that's our goal, is to give. And so we knew we didn't really need a branding, but we also wanted to give a sense of legitimacy, not to us, but so that the end user is recognizing, hey, this is some brand. Maybe I've never heard of it, but this is a branded diaper. It has a UPC barcode on it. It has names and all these things, and it tells me what, like, the other things that I learned is like the ingredients or the materials and components that are made that make a diaper up. And so we branded our diapers, and we were like, okay, if we're going to brand these diapers, we knew right away it's not going to be Qashar. It's not going to be Josh's baby diapers, right? Or it's not going to be named after one of my daughters. And so we're like, all right, we're brainstorming, and you're creative guys, both of you, coming up with a good name. It's tough. But through I mean, how the Jewish Road, you guys got it. You got it. I love it. So we, through one of our brainstorming sessions, we landed on the name Mazel Tots. I mean, it's a great play on words. It's fun. We've got a cute little baby on the package. Maybe I can get you a picture and you can post it somewhere if you'd like. I'll have to see. I've got one that I can share with you, I'm sure. And we hired a designer. We really felt this was the right person. That's the other thing too, is in this process, he's a pastor. And he's been doing designing for years, and he's never designed a package before. But when I had reached out to some people, and my number one choice was unavailable. It actually is an Israeli gal that was my neighbor in Los Angeles. Not a believer, but she's a professional packaging designer for a big company. If I mentioned it, everybody would know it. And she was eager to do it until she recognized she just didn't have the time. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? And so I reached out to a network of people, and this pastor guy reached out to me and said, yeah, I do it. And we talked, and I just sensed this is the guy. He may not be as qualified. It may not be his primary career, but this is the guy. And man, as I listened to him, he goes, my wife and I were just talking, and we were just praying. We really need to do something for Israel. This couple really has a heart for Israel. And they're a young, I call them young. They're probably in their mid to late 30s. They're a young couple. They're from California originally as well. And now they're pastoring in New Mexico. And he just understood he had the right heart. He understood what we were doing. And it made all the difference. And so I'm grateful for those little signs along the way of God's hand in this project. And so he's the one that's responsible for the design behind Mazel Tots. We're just the ones that came up with the name. So Chris, thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Well, Josh, I'm proud of you and the efforts, you and your dad in the ministry and the logistical. I mean, even just for the two of us, the logistics of going over to Israel, just to plan a trip and go meet with all the people that we wanted to was enough to have us at each other's throats. But, for you to be able to stay with this and it's not done, and the need is still there. And whether it's diapers or something else in the future, can't wait to watch. But I know that the good thing is you're going to be right down the street, and our hearts are knitted together with yours. And I believe it's a big kingdom. And so we've sowed into your ministry. We want others to sow into your ministry, and love what you guys are doing. And as the other father-son messianic Jewish ministry here in Kentucky, it's nice to know that we're rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you so much again for just giving this opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing and know the needs are out there, whether God's asking you to go across the street or across the world. Step out.
That need is never going to disappear.
No, the poor we will have with us always.
Yeah.
But in so doing, we will serve and love like our Savior. And the need continues.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is interesting. We start out life in diapers and we also end out life in diapers.
You laugh. I've also learned that one of the other big needs in Israel are adult diapers. Yeah. The challenge is, 650,000 will go a super long way there. So be in prayer. We don't know. You never know what the next project will be. We do, by God's grace, believe that diapers are going to continue to be a part of what we're doing, at least for this season. Other things that we've considered are adult diapers as well, because the needs are huge.
You need a name.
We do need a name. Ron,
how about
get at it.
Muzzle plots.
Alta cock or something.
Oh Lord.
Well, if you don't do it, we might have to.
So. Somebody register that name.
Yeah. Alta cockers. That's great.
And I will say, the early reports, not only are the diapers going out, but we recognize that the need is still there. Yeah. How long? This is the one thing we're going to learn over the next couple of months. How long until the demand is where it was before these arrived?
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Well, if you ever get into the adult diaper field, we're local, we're available. And if you need a couple of models, we will find them for you. We're not offering ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Yeah. No, thanks. I'm not.
Josh, if people want to follow you guys, where do they go? Where are all the places? Where do you show up in the world?
Sure. Well, the ministry is on the World Wide Web, as we used to call it. So Qashar Ministries.org is where you'll find a lot about our ministry. We're going to be in the next few weeks having an update to our website, but there's still plenty to learn there. Yeah. You can also sign up for our email newsletters. We send out those probably every 2 weeks. One went out this morning, actually, as a matter of fact.
I thought.
And then I'm online, if that matters as well, at Josh Roberts Live. I don't know if that matters at all.
It does. You're a good follow. You show up in my algorithm, and I enjoy it.
All right. So there's that. And the ministry will probably in the next year or so start showing up at a lot of those places as well. But just look for QasharMinistries.org. And I'm sure Matt will have a link in the show notes, as they say.
The show notes, all the links, all the show notes, all the things. So, hey, brother, good to have you here. Thanks for joining us on the podcast. And I'm sure we'll see you now that we're both in town for a little bit, eh?
Yeah. Say hi to your dad.
Yeah.
I will.
Come out here.
Yeah. My mom's coming in August. I'm trying to convince Dad to come too. So we'll see.
All right. Thanks, brother. Shalom.
Shalom.